Hi guys, Chris here, and you're watching Here We Are Running. And today, it's the first episode of a brand new mini-series where you'll be joining me at different times of the day. Sometimes I'll be alone, but other times, like today, I'll be joined with a guest. And we'll be talking about a specific running topic. Because at the moment, it's difficult to give you lots of running footage in my videos when the amount of runs I'm doing is limited and I'm not training for any specific event. So just trying to think out of the box a little bit. To give you something that's interesting. I don't want to make content for the sake of it. So the challenge for me is to make you something that's interesting whilst I'm not actually running that much. So I do hope you enjoy it. And of course, if you do remember to hit that thumbs up button. With that said, let me introduce you to today's guest. He's a fellow YouTuber who I've had the pleasure of running with last summer at the HODDIES Snails Trail Race. And until it got cancelled, he was training for his first ultra. But the main reason I've invited him onto the channel today is to discuss a challenge that he's just completed to raise money for his local NHS trust. Because he's just completed a marathon. Now, quite sensibly, he didn't go out and run a marathon as part of his daily permitted exercise run. And he hasn't got a garden, so he couldn't do it there. So instead, Dan has completed his marathon in his living room. That's right. So without further ado, let's meet him. So here is Dan from the Dan Runs YouTube channel. Hello, Dan.
Hi, morning, Chris. How are you doing?
I am very good. I'm loving the t-shirt, by the way, Dan.
Well, as you know, we were due to do a little bit of running together, weren't we, for your solo marathon attempt after your marathon got cancelled. So I thought I would purchase this t-shirt in anticipation of seeing you on that day. But actually, that was this weekend, wasn't it? Just gone past. We were planning to do that. But nevertheless, it's a nice bright t-shirt and one that I can wear in the evenings out my run. So I am well illuminated.
That's great. And the first thing I wanted to ask you actually is, as well as how are you doing, but how is your carpet doing after that challenge?
Well, you see here, I put the rug back down. So I just probably won't look at it again for the next so many years. But it seems to have held up pretty well. You know, if I was to review carpets, I would say it's doing a really good job.
That's great. And well, this episode, as I've been saying to everyone, is filmed at different times of the day. It is breakfast time at the moment when we're filming this. So the first thing I've got to ask you is, what are you having for breakfast today?
Okay, so I've just got a porridge bowl here. It's a little bit mixed in. Nothing too Instagram ready there, but I've got some blueberries and then some hemp seeds, some flax seeds, some chia seeds. Just a pretty basic breakfast, but the sort of breakfast that I have before if I go on a long run, something like that.
Brilliant. And I'll let everyone know what breakfast I have got. In fact, it's my second breakfast because I couldn't wait. And I'm very boring. Ever since I was a kid, my breakfast that I've had nearly every day is 4 Weetabix. That's what gets me going in the morning. But for this second breakfast today, I've got crumpets here with a bit of jam on. So I'll be tucking into those as we go through. And of course, I've also got a cup of tea and some orange juice there. Okay, so now that we've dealt with that, I want to start by asking you how this challenge of running a marathon in your living room actually came about.
Okay, so it must have been a week or so ago. I was on YouTube and I'm subscribed to a channel, Running with Mark, and he had just completed his marathon distance on his balcony. And I looked at that attempt and I thought, wow, that's really inspiring. And then the next day I was sort of searching through the internet and a few more people started to appear with their running attempts on a balcony. And as you mentioned, I was training for my ultra and I knew I didn't have a balcony. I didn't have an outdoor space and I wasn't going out running either. So I started to think about where logically can I do an attempt of any sorts in my home. And I started to experiment a little bit, just doing some test runs to see whether this space behind me here was going to be viable. And just a few goes using the watch as well, just to see if I could get some kind of reading for distance. And after a couple of sort of failed, slightly miserable attempts, I did work out how best to record the distance on my watch. And I just decided, okay, well, if I'm going to do this, it needs to be a decision that I make and I stick with. And then it was the night before the marathon. I sat down with my partner and I said, okay, let's clear the space here, tomorrow is the day. I'm going to do a marathon distance in the front room, in the living room. And I'm not just going to do it for me. I'm going to do it for a charity, and knowing how much the NHS do and how busy they are at the moment and how busy their workers are and how few breaks they're able to take, because they are on their feet literally all day, up to 36 hours, some of them. I thought, let me have a search on Just Giving to see if not only is there an opportunity to raise money for NHS, but maybe something more local to me. I live in Surrey. So I thought the Surrey and Borders Foundation, that wing of the NHS, would be something that I would love to raise money for, and it's more specific than just the NHS as a whole. So that is what I decided to do. But it was the night before that I decided, inspired by so many people that had done it already. But from what I could see, I was one of the first to just do it in a kind of an up and down way. I couldn't run around in a circle. There's literally no room here. So it was up and down marathon distance. And I just thought, let's see how far I can go, see what I can do.
Yes, I've heard of. I saw that marathon attempt on the balcony, and I've seen some other people. I think it all started off in China, where the coronavirus obviously started, and people doing it around indoors there, but not sort of just in one room. The guy I saw there was doing it around his whole apartment. And I've seen quite a few garden attempts now as well. It's quite interesting seeing different people's gardens. In fact, I'm not going to attempt a marathon or anything like that in my garden, but I am going to try and do a park run this Saturday at 9 o'clock this Saturday in my park run. So anybody that wants to tune in for that, it will be live streaming 9 a.m. on Saturday, providing the weather's okay. I'm just going to do the 5k distance. So
perfect.
So so you had to measure it out, I'm guessing, your room. How wide was the space that you had to run it?
Yeah, so I got the tape measure out, and obviously wishful thinking, I thought I might have a little bit more room than I actually turned out to have. It is just over 4 meters. I think 4 meters and 15 centimeters, something like that. So for the sake of argument, I just thought, let's call it 4 meters, because it takes into account me doing the turnaround. I can't necessarily go heel to heel. So 4 meters was the distance that I was working with. And then I did some manual calculations from there to see what that would look like in terms of laps up and down to get to the distance that we know and love of 26.2 miles.
And in terms of preparation then, you didn't really do a lot of preparation because you only made your mind up the night before.
Yeah, so that's an interesting question, because when I started out with the thought of doing it, I was just intending to sort of walk and jog, and I really wasn't thinking about running it at all. It was never about that. And so in terms of preparation, I just didn't necessarily carb load or do anything like you'd normally do for a marathon. Not that I would really do it anyway, but I woke up the next day, had some porridge, like the breakfast I've got now. Just sort of got on some of my running gear, but didn't do the usual routine you'd go through, maybe prepping your feet, prepping your toes, doing all the kind of, the chafing thing, the plasters. Never did any of that, because my original plan was just to kind of walk and stroll, and I was going to live stream it, and I was just going to enjoy the experience, and it would take as long as it took. So yeah, preparation was minimal to none. But of course, I had a little bit of base that I'd built in anticipation of my ultra. However, during this sort of lockdown period, I haven't been utilising my daily exercises at all. I've not really been going out apart from the odd run. So I didn't really have much to go with other than what my body was feeling like on the day. But like I say, I was mainly attempting just to walk and jog and stroll and just enjoy wandering backwards and forwards.
And in terms of motivation, how did you really motivate yourself? Because that was a long way. How long did it take in total, time-wise?
10 hours and 2 seconds was the time that I clocked on my watch, and it was live streamed a minute or two longer than that, because I just sort of obviously said hello before I got going. So 10 hours in total.
And what did you do for motivation through that? Because that is a long time to be on your feet.
Yeah,
walking and running.
It's an interesting one, because even thinking back to it, it didn't really feel like 10 hours. I was just wandering backwards and forwards. I think I just got into a bit of a sort of meditative state. I was quite enjoying just sort of wandering about, being on my own. I had the company of people on live stream all day, and I was responding to their comments. My family was sort of in contact throughout the day as well. I listened to music for probably 20 minutes to half an hour of it, but otherwise, I don't know. I just was quite inspired by what I was reading from people. Money started to come in quite quickly. The moment I got the first penny, really, I knew that I was completing the distance. I wasn't doing it for myself. I was doing it for the countless people that are out at the moment supporting the nation. And so it was never really even in question about being motivated. And because there was no pressure on me to complete in a certain time, I was incredibly relaxed about it. Probably it is the most relaxed marathon distance I've done, because it was just an enjoyable moment to have and to be in. And yeah, there was no pressure on me at all. So I was just motivated by the opportunity and motivated by the people that were joining me throughout the day, which I really appreciate, including yourself.
Yeah, and it sounds like it all went pretty straightforward then. But normally in a marathon, you'd expect some tough patches to occur. Did you have any of those? Did you have any times where it was feeling really tough? You thought you might not actually be able to complete it?
No, the only thing that became complicated was the fact that when I got to half marathon distance, I realised that this was going to take probably longer than I anticipated. So I think I got to half marathon at maybe 5.5 hours. And at that point, it starts to register in here. Okay, I could be here for 11 hours or longer. So it wasn't a case of having a tough patch, more a case of, I might need to think a little bit more about how much time I'm going to be on my feet here. And then because I hadn't necessarily prepared myself to run it, then it was thinking about the whole nutrition side of things. I did jump on the live chat and I just said, any advice right now for how much I need to be consuming in terms of nutrition, because I hadn't really thought about what that would look like. I know what it looks like for me running, but for me walking, jogging, and then for me being on my feet that amount of time, I was a little bit in the dark with how best to approach that. But I was never in a moment in my head where I thought, I can't do this. It was going to be done the moment I took the first step, and the moment I got the first penny, first pound, it was happening.
Yeah, I guess that was a big sort of motivating factor in it all. What did you do for hydration and nutrition during the run?
Yeah, so I've just got a couple of things here just to remind myself. To start with, it was just water. I'd had my breakfast, obviously, in the morning breakfast and a green tea. And then I just had just water in a bottle that you'd normally take on a run with you. And I was just sort of sipping that every few kilometres. But because I wasn't using that much in terms of energy, I didn't necessarily feel like I needed to hydrate a huge amount. And then I just had some little sort of flapjack bar on the side ready. And then when I jumped on the live chat, I was sort of advised you might want to just get a gel or two just by the side, just in case you start to pick up the pace, start to spend a little bit more of your time kind of running rather than walking. So I just grabbed an energy gel, and I had that throughout the day. And then after I'd had some lunch, which was just normal food, noodles and veg from the night before, leftovers, nothing fancy. I put a bit of Tailwind in a bottle as well. So I kind of dipped into my usual running style of having a gel, having a bit of Tailwind, so that was familiar to my body. But again, nothing too fancy, just breakfast, normal lunch, and just kept myself full and made sure that I sort of drank to thirst as you would do normally. But I also was just aware that I needed to keep on top of that and not be too laid back. This was still an amount of time that I was going to be on my feet, and I needed to put some effort into ensuring that I was well hydrated and kept my body fueled.
Absolutely, and certainly seemed to work. And I was going to say, how did you feel over the last sort of couple of kilometres leading up to the end then? And did you do anything at the end to celebrate this amazing challenge?
So as you'll know, because you were the first person to put the kind of estimated finish time in there, and you said 9 hours 59:59, and you were so close to that. So towards the end, I looked down at my watch, and even though it wasn't tracking perfectly in terms of distance, it was there as obviously a time for me to look at and for me to use. So I started to think that I might be able to get this completed in 10 hours. And it must have been about, 9.5 hours, something like that. I thought, okay, in order for me to do this, I need to now start to run. I need to try and do what I can. But of course, the problem I've got in this space is it's 2 and a bit strides before you're turning around. So you can't run. It's just a case of moving quicker. But I didn't feel like I was able to really pick up a huge amount of pace. So towards the end, I was doing as much as I could to be as quick as I could. And then with the last 150 laps, that was my countdown, and I was doing it with people on the screen. And I know some family members joined in with some jogging. My family found my channel, which just basically out of interest, my channel has never been shared with my family. It was always just done for me. So they discovered my channel, and
you got some new subscribers now then.
Well, no, they're not subscribed either, which is a bit irritating, isn't it? But they were then joining in, and they were watching live. So I was just going as quickly as I could, backwards and forwards. And yeah, those last few laps, I was using anything and everything that I had to try and get there. But then celebrations afterwards, as you'll see, I had this sofa, and even though it was there all day, I was never tempted to sit down, but it's the nicest it's ever felt just to crash out on the sofa. We supported our local Italian restaurant, myself and my partner, that we've always loved going to. So we just got some simple pasta in and kept them going. So made sure we put a bit more money back into the local area and local business. And just really crashed out, made sure I drank lots of water and did all the things you'd normally do after a marathon, quick recovery, drink. But overall, just keeping yourself safe, being sensible, and being kind to your body.
That's brilliant. And so we've said you obviously did it for the NHS, and you said why. How much did you actually end up raising in the end?
As it stands now, I'm at £355.
That's brilliant.
It's
worthwhile doing.
Yeah, absolutely incredible. And obviously, thank you for your donation as well. But so many people who, while some of them are family, a lot of them are not family members. Some of them are people who subscribe to my channel. Some are people who discovered my channel. I don't know how they discovered it, but they discovered it on the day. And so, and some has come in afterwards from people, again, who I don't know. So I really appreciate the international community coming together and just offering whatever they can. It's a difficult time. People are strapped for cash, and some people are not in a position where they can afford to give, but people have, and I do truly appreciate that. And I know that the Surrey and Borders partnership with the NHS will also really appreciate that contribution.
So that's all really good, and I just wanted to thank you again for coming onto the channel and telling the story to all of my viewers. And guys, do check out Dan's channel if you haven't before. But I wanted to finish really with a final question, which was, so you have completed this challenge now.
Yes.
But do you have any other challenges planned? Because this lockdown's not going to end anytime soon.
No, I've not really thought about anything in particular because, as I mentioned, I'm not really going out, so I'm not doing a lot outside the home. So anything I do think of would have to be in here. But now I know what I'm able to do in this space, I think it sort of gives me permission to think about other opportunities. And at the moment, I'm also supporting my partner. She's just started a Couch to 5K, and she's on her we've just done a second run, so a third run. So I think what I'll probably do is use any exercise that I can outside to go with her and just keep that ticking over, support her and her goals.
That's brilliant too. And guys watching this, if you've got any ideas for Dan for his next challenge, drop a comment below. See what anyone can come up with. And thanks again very much for coming onto the channel, sharing the story. I certainly enjoyed watching it. It's amazing how you can just watch someone running up and down their living room and being entertained with it. But there you go, you can.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Chris. Thank you.
No problem. And thanks everyone for watching this video today. Thanks to Dan. And guys, I do hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, of course, hit the thumbs up button, give the video a like, head over to Dan's channel, check it out. If you're new around here, then yes, definitely consider subscribing. But for now, guys, till the next one, goodbye.